First thing is, you must have gender dysphoria to be transgender. SJWs and transgenders are trying to push the idea of not needing to have gender dysphoria to be trans. It's like saying, hey, don't worry, you don't need it, so just switch genders anyway and become one of us. It's dangerous for kids to hear it this way, but unfortunately, it works, and this is why we have not just drag queens, but drag kids too, like Desmond is amazing. You want to see information on drag kid stuff and just all the pedophilia that's been happening, check out this video here, LGBT lessons taught to 5-year-olds, as well as pedophilia is becoming normalized. Great information in there, but it's also incredibly sad information and really quite disturbing. Let's make one thing clear. Sex and gender are the exact same thing. Even paid-off modern scientists are admitting that gender is not scientific at all. In fact, when they do talk about gender, sure, they say sex and gender are different, but the way they describe gender is still not valid. They basically say that gender is a social construct and mostly based on how you describe yourself. I am not ever going to admit to something being real that is literally created to change from person to person. For example, you know that 1,000 genders list where people are identifying as just random shit, like food, unicorns, helicopters, aliens, and just random crap like that? Well, one of the many, in fact, this is basically the only one that makes even some sense, is basically a person who doesn't feel like either gender. They don't feel like a man or a woman. They feel like someone who is in between those two, or simply doesn't feel like either. And there are multiple terms for this one thing. Yes, this one concept has multiple terms. Check out the list. Agender, gender fluid, gender variant, third gender, and non-binary. All of those terms mean the exact same thing. I'm not joking, they really do. They all mean feeling like neither man or woman. Typical SJW is trying to make themselves feel special by giving 5 terms of the exact same thing. All 5 of those terms refer to a person who doesn't identify as male or female. But my point is, none of these actually exist. They're not scientific. Scientists have even admitted to this. And studies have shown that the majority of non-binary people are within teenhood and eventually grow out of it. Essentially, this article talks about how many trans people who don't actually have dysphoria regret their actions, primarily because the only reason they did it in the first place is because of pressure from others, self-esteem issues, looking for somewhere to fit in, trying to feel unique, follow trends, being pushed into it by parents, by those corrupted drag queens that try to push it on your 5-year-old kids, or, the worst of all, identifying as non-binary and, as I said earlier, growing out of it, but for some people, growing out of it too late. The truth is, children transitioning is child abuse. All of these transgenders, SJWs, drag queens, etc. are forcing it on these young kids as basically a fashion statement, when in reality it's a mental issue and medical problem. If a child doesn't have dysphoria, they're going to grow up to regret it, and you force them into doing irreversible damage to their bodies. And even if a child does have dysphoria, a transition shouldn't be done until they're old enough to understand it and make the decision themselves. This article is about a woman named Charlie Evans who regretted her own transition and stopped taking her hormone therapy. Since she did, she had hundreds of other people contact her asking her for help, support, and advice, proving that there really are many other people who regret the decision, but apparently kept it as secret until they got inspired by her, most likely because they were afraid of societal backlash by friends, family, and SJWs, and that's sad. The people who contacted her most likely made the decision at an extremely young age, didn't have dysphoria, didn't understand what they were doing, but were pushed into it anyway. Let's think about how disgusting this truly is. Look at the law. Kids are apparently considered too young to drink, drive, or vote, but are old enough to make decisions about switching genders at 3 or 4 years old. And you can see evidence for that right here. Gender transition offered to children as young as 3 or 4. NHS facilities in the UK have started to offer guidance on gender transition to children as young as 3 or 4 years old, and participation in gender transition programs has skyrocketed. One centre, called the Tavistock in Portman NHS Trust, says that compared with 10 years ago, participation has skyrocketed by 3,200%, with the rate for girls going up by 5,337. With its records showing that referrals are more common than ever, the centers suggest that cases of detransition will also rise. So why not help them instead of making them transition and then detransition again? What, is it because of money?
When psychologists or somebody that I was in love with or whatever said that I was in the wrong body, I started to think, well, maybe I am. biological woman that medically transitioned to appear like a male through synthetic hormones and surgery. I will never be a man. Is it transphobic for me to tell the truth? Why
Yes.
is it that a couple hundred years from now, if you dug up my body, they're going to go, yeah, that was a woman, had babies?
Can you tell me about the procedures that you had?
I've had 7 surgeries. I've had 1 stress heart attack. I've had a helicopter life ride with a pulmonary embolism. I've had 17 rounds of antibiotics. I had 6 inches of hair on the inside of my urethra for 17 months. Nobody would help me, including the doctor that did this to me because I lost my insurance. I get infections every 3 to 4 months. I'm probably not going to live very long.
This is awful.
Was there any real discussion of the risks and the side effects? And
No. And I know that people want to think that there is, but there's not. The truth is that medical transition is experimental. We have studies that said that medical transition helps mental health with kids. They've all been retracted, modified, changed. But the only long-term study tells us 7 to 10 years is when transgender people are the most suicidal. After surgery.
After surgery. There you fucking go. SJW scum.
But that's transphobic to say. For the first time in history, a marginalized group has a huge dollar sign on the top of their head. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States promoting that.
What?
what?
That's a phalloplasty. That's a bottom surgery. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States telling girls that they can be boys at $70,000 a pop in a surgery that has a 67% complication rate.
Wow.
But no, we're the liars. We're the people in the wrong. We're sexist. We're homophobic. We're this. We're that.
This is rare for me to say, but I'm actually stunned right now. So the reality has been the reason why this is pushed so much everywhere, the school, mainstream media, is because they just want to make money on doing surgeries.
That will kill me from infection that I can't sue on for butchering a generation of children because nobody's willing to talk about anything. I have 3 kids. At the age that they're doing this to kids. I'm not transphobic. I love my kids, and I love other people's kids, and you should too. This is wrong on so many levels.
Can kids consent? Do you think kids are
No.
capable of consenting to
No,
this?
they're not. Being a parent is loving the hell out of your kids and helping them see around corners. Every child that they convince is transgender and in need of medical transition, it generates $1.3 million to pharma. And we're believing a pharmaceutical company, Lupron, hormone blockers, reversible, so they say. Well, the truth is that in 2003, Lupron was sued and deemed a criminal enterprise by the U.S. government. They paid the most fine of any pharmaceutical company at that time, $874 million, wrote a check.
Is Lupron chemical castration?
Yes. We're giving it to pedophiles, aren't we? We're giving it to people that are dying, and we're giving it to kids, telling them that they were born in the wrong body and it's completely safe.
This is disgusting. All this is fucking disgusting. It's inhumane what is going on. And the fact that people are there supporting this, people who are going to watch this and still fucking support it, you are fucking disgusting.
This is what SJWs have done. How much more evidence do you need that their goal is to not just fight for trans rights, but to straight up push trans lifestyles on anyone they can, especially young impressionable kids who don't have dysphoria as a fashion statement or trend? They're even teaching it at school, like the Drag Queen Story Hour, which is taught to kids. This is something that is way too difficult for kids to understand, but they don't care. As the article states, there is a lack of information about how many people actually regret the transition. But I did find a source. According to this one, 11% of females regret transition, and 4% of men do. And that may seem like a small percent, but let's think about this. That's 15% total people who regret it and have done irreversible damage to their bodies. Also, that's only what's reported. Consider two other factors. One, there are also many others who probably didn't report it at all out of fear of being shunned or attacked. And two, how many didn't report it due to feeling there's no point because they probably can't afford the extremely high costs for a surgery to switch back. The article further states that the number of young people seeking gender transition surgery is at the highest it's ever been. Let's think about this for a moment. Why? It's not like gender dysphoria and transgenderism was just invented in the last 5 years. It's obvious that there's other factors at play. Like I mentioned earlier, all of the pressure being put on, forcing and teaching kids at young ages, transgenders, etc. This only proves that point further. Charlie Evans herself even states that the majority of people who contacted her for help were female, young, same-sex attracted, and even autistic. All of that lines up exactly with what I said about impressionable, confused, and young. Those are all the real facts about this serious mental and medical problem that so many people face. I am in no way against transgender people. In fact, this video proves I'm defending you. I didn't read this entire article, but if you want to read the whole article for yourself, I'll link it down below. Read everything if you want, because it is very important. And I feel so bad for all the people who regret their transition because they've done damage to their bodies and they probably also have psychological problems now. It also gives a lot of evidence towards the fact that a lot of trans people commit suicide. It's terrible what they go through, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. But luckily, if you've seen my video and you understand the facts that I'm saying here, you understand that they are in fact facts, please send this video to other people who might need to know the same kind of information and have been misled by other YouTubers who don't know all the real facts. I hope it helped in some way, or at least informed you. While idiots like Hunter Avalon are constantly using medical journals to prove certain things, that like gender is a social construct and that these transitional surgeries are a good thing and all that stuff, it's important to note something very, very fucking vital, that those medical journals that you think are verifiable and true because they're medical journals are paid for by Big Pharma, who is encouraging this because they want money. So of course they're going to support it. Just because something is written professionally from the government or from a medical journal or whatever the fuck does not automatically make it fact. Any final thoughts for you?
Nope, took the words right out of my mouth.